And we're back with episode 27 of Brento Cast, rolling southernly on Highway 77, approaching the edge of Ohio. Going to be entering West Virginia soon on the trek home from visiting my buddy Bill's house and collecting a huge portion of his massive output of puppets and posable figures that he created in his lifetime. And got my partner in life and partner in crime with me here. What's your name, honey?
Nancee.
Nancee. The Nancee, would it be?
Yes.
Well, what did you think of Aurora, where we stayed?
I loved it. It was romantic.
What'd you love about it?
The charm of the buildings, the old French style, all of the Christmas lights. It was beautiful.
Not to correct you on the podcast and be a neckbeard, but wasn't that colonial style?
Yes. Yes.
Baden Inn is French style. But anyway, I digress. We had a good time, and I probably spent a grand total of an hour at Bill's house, but I did manage to get my eyeballs on everything and sort of sort out what there was to curate of his materials. And I believe that this load we're carrying right now is about half of the puppets all together, and we would need to make one more trip to get the others. That is excluding 4 really large, oversized things he made: 2 dragons, a big elephant, and a giant ostrich that were designed to be sat upon. So, it would take a major box truck. I don't know if I'm going to be able to make that happen, but I got the bulk of the work, which was in all kinds of, shape. The stuff that he did maybe 20 years ago, a series of cavemen, is in maybe not the greatest shape, but I do think it can be cleaned up and, reassembled in some cases, and at least photographed and perhaps photo scanned and presented on a website, which I hope to put together for kind of a tribute and living conservatory of Bill's work. Now, I knew Bill was a creative guy, but when I got to his place, I discovered what his sister is calling Billville, which apparently was a whole enclave of tree houses and sort of reassembled outbuildings and stuff in the shape of a little fort. Literally has like a thing that you walk under to go into the whole thing, like an old fort. And it's got a catwalk, and it's got a 4-story treehouse with glass windows and locking doors and all this. It was crazy. I did not expect to encounter that. Additionally, I got to check out Bill's basement, where he had drawn all these various Hanna-Barbera characters and painted them. I think Patty helped with that a bit too. And I did take some photos this time, and I planned to go back today and do photo scans, but the weather is calling for snow again. And realizing that I'm going to have to unload all this in the dark, I thought, I'm going to come back one more time. Let's do that when it's not cold. It was 30 degrees out, so obviously I'd have been pressed to have got everything done without getting too cold. And it was just easy to make that decision to go ahead and head on home, and get back to our regularly scheduled program of working at the store. Got 5 massages tomorrow, and did not want to go into that totally worn out. But I gotta say, for I figure with the stops and everything, from the time we started till the time we got there was probably about 10 hours, and I didn't think the trip was that tough. What did you think, Nancee?
It wasn't bad. It just got a little tiring in the 6th and 7th hour in the car. I was ready to get out.
Yeah, I think the trip on the whole, for me, through Virginia and West Virginia, is just incredibly beautiful. When you hit Ohio, things flatten out a bit, and you get into some interesting architecture and old barns and stuff like that, but generally speaking, it all looks the same for about 187 miles. And although I'm seeing things today, look at that, Nancee, over there. That old refinery, another refinery back there in the valley. I'm seeing, we're passing like the Strasburg exit on 77 South, and there's an old factory. You get to see a lot of old patina and Americana and places like this. And that's kind of cool. I really like it. It is so overcast, I can't even tell you. It's been the exact same color since we left home on, when did we leave home? Friday morning, right?
Friday morning.
About, was it 8:30? 9:30. Yeah, it's looked basically the same. The sun has peeked out here and there, but mostly it's just totally overcast. And on the way up, I guess we spent the last 2 hours with it like literally falling snow, but fortunately it wasn't sticking, so that was cool. But just now passing the Marietta East 250 exit, 87 on 77 South. Haven't been down this way in a long time. I guess I went years ago to Maryland, and I've also went to Indianapolis, Indiana, where some of the trek was common up through at least Virginia. And yeah, it's pretty country up here, but it's different scenes and interesting to go places you don't often go. You sort of think your brain kind of perceives things differently if you're not familiar with the sights, and so in that sense it's interesting. And even going back is interesting, but it is definitely the land of gray limbs and snow-frosted trees up here. We had a frosting of snow, which in the area that we stayed in, which was Aurora, Ohio, didn't seem to be that much on the ground. But then I drove like 15-20 minutes over to Ravenna, and I went through a forest that for whatever reason the snow was really much heavier there and a light dusting. And actually, if you look at the vlog from this trip, which will be up this week on BrentBowers.com, you will definitely see a drive that I took to a very bucolic, scenic, snow-dusted little forest by a reservoir. And it was really pretty. And I don't know, just something about rolling into Bill's place for the first time, never having seen where he lived up until then. It just kind of gave me a peaceful feeling. I'm like, well, this guy at least had some beauty in his life. And, you know, it wasn't all bad living up here. I know we had talked about him moving back to Charlotte and he, not Charlotte, but Albemarle, rather. And that was something he was interested in doing, I guess, because his family was pretty much all away from this area now. I did meet Bill's older brother, Jim, who I'd never met before. And, of course, Patty was there. I met Patty, but hadn't seen her in 30 years. So, and she looked basically the same. That's cool. But, yeah, it was a revelation, and I got to sort of see that, you know, he had some cool times. He had actually Patty had never seen the expansion of the house. Apparently built a sunroom, and it was perfectly done. I mean, you know, constructed. I didn't know he had those skills. And then when I saw Billville, the enclave of tree houses and whatnot, I was like, well, clearly this guy knew some basic carpentry. And I mean, it was well beyond my carpentry ability, Nancee, wouldn't you say?
Yes.
You'd say that even though you didn't see it?
Yes.
Because you were at the spa.
Yes.
Anyway, next time you are going to see it.
Maybe.
We're not doing the spa next time.
Then I'm not coming.
Okay, I guess I'll get Todd to come with me.
Have fun with Todd.
I don't think I can have as much fun with Todd as I have with you. Anyway, there's some mills we're passing on the left up here, spewing white smoke into the atmosphere. I'm really glad I came. I got a piece of my heart, you know, and I don't know, I thought I'd be much sadder about Bill, but, you know, he lived a life that had, I don't want to say constant pain, but he dealt with regular pain, and I do think he knew he was on the way out. I mean, based on his actions. I mean, he took a trip out and just drove to California, and then just drove back out to Maine, and then drove down to see us for 9 days. 30 days before he passed away. So I feel like he knew that that the end was nigh, and you know, he didn't seem terribly concerned about it. I think I might have been in a different state of mind, but yeah, I guess that's why he wanted to go out to South Stanley and see the old football game and stuff that we did while we were down here. It was just kind of reliving his past a little bit, and but of course, you know, I didn't say too much talking to Patty in there, but, you know, I did notice, you know, the room was, I mean, I saw the room where he passed away, and I saw the couch where he had drew his last breath, you know, and it was a green room with a giant TV juxtaposed from comfortable looking leather couch, and then like the walls were green, the carpet was green, and the curtains were green. So I'll remember that as the Emerald Room, you know. But then it was just kind of a regular place. The kitchen was fairly modern, and you know, it's a house that was clearly built in the 70s that had been sort of upfitted, and you know, I could see it being a comfortable place for a bachelor. He had a really nice 2-car garage, which is where all these puppets were. Well, half of the puppets were stored, and we. It's funny because we took the tour, and then we looked at his expansion building out back, which was a nice big work area. I got to see where he did all this amazing work at, and out there was all kinds of 2 puppet stages, 3 of the giant figures that were too big for me to haul, and were out there, and then like a neat little collection of boxes that held, you know, the puppets, and I really should have started loading those, but instead we went into the garage where in various ways the puppets had been stored, and I gathered that some of the contractors weren't that careful with getting dust all over them. So the puppets were clean, but the bags that they were in were not. So we had to take a bunch of them out of bags and boxes. And my intention was just to get the bigger ones and then go out to the building. But Patty just kept handing me boxes that were stuffed full of stuff. I can't even tell you. I mean, you guys are going to be amazed at the sheer quantity. I think what I'm going to do to start the project is I'm going to take all these and lay them out at my basement pavement, so I can get a photo from the top of all the stuff that I hauled back in this trip. And then, you know, I'll start the process of separating the things that need to be fixed from the things that are, you know, good to go as they are. You know, you look at these things and you visualize how the tactile experience of holding them or operating them will be. And I found that the tactile experience was very different than I imagined. I mean, they are puppets in one sense, but they don't automate with rods or strings. So I think that's technically not the definition of a puppet. I think they would be considered posable figures. So I think the way to do stuff with them is to like maybe set up scenes or vignettes and photograph them pose, you know. Now, he did make a few actual puppets. In particular, there's a hippopotamus hand puppet that is just basically the head of a big hippopotamus, and that one's really plush. And it's funny because you can see his progression as an artist. He started out very basic materials and then got up to the point where they would look like something you would have bought from a store. So well, there's your snow-capped hilltop, Nancee.
Okay.
How you feeling? Did you enjoy your breakfast?
Yes.
Talk about the place where we ate breakfast both days. What's it called?
Evexia.
And what does Evexia mean, you erudite, hot woman, you?
A feeling of well-being. Snowing and sleeting.
Yeah, it just started snowing, actually. And look at that. You can see it snowed for a while up there on those hilltops. But yeah, we got light snow coming down. It's 31 degrees. I'm not too concerned about accumulation. Actually, I'm more concerned that it's going to be raining where we're going. But I tell you what, you can breeze through these valleys really quickly at 70 miles an hour. And at this moment, I see one car in the distance. There's one car approaching in the distance, and it's not heavy traffic for a Sunday morning. I'm kind of surprised. But, I mean, we are coming down a major corridor. But we're going through a valley right now in Ohio. It is beautiful. I love when you can, like, see like houses at a great distance and there's not anything close. Like there's an appeal to that to me. And you kind of imagine yourself, what would it be like to live there? Oh, I guess I would have to go, oh, look at that. Guy has a white artificial deer in his driveway, and for a second I thought it was real. But these little peaks and stuff, you can see it. I just, something about, do you like seeing the mountains?
Yes.
Does it make you feel more spiritual?
It
reminds me of God when I see like these vistas. I don't know, coming through those 2 big valleys in Virginia and West Virginia that 77 runs through, the tunnels and all that. I just love it. I mean, it's always, I'm awe-stricken. Of course, you're moving at 75 miles an hour at that point, but like looking back to my right here at maybe a draw back in a valley between two hills that goes back miles. Seeing all the houses and stuff, it's amazing. I could see why somebody would want to live out away from, main society and towns like this. But of course, the idea of having to drive 30 minutes to get to a Walmart, not as appealing. Gotta turn the heat back on here. It's starting to fog the windows up, Miss Nancee. But yeah, it's a fun trip. I finally made the come up and got everything to work to get this podcast onto iTunes. So, hello iTunes. So we're now propagated out onto iTunes, and starting to think about ending season 1 and starting to call things season 2. I'm thinking maybe 30 episodes we'll call a season. So we're just a few away from that number. Or I don't know. In theory, I was going to do these every week. So it'd be a much larger season, but who knows? I mean, just it's when things happen or I feel inspired. It's a personal vlog, if you will, but in the form of a podcast. Haven't seen any great media that really inspires me to talk about it lately. It's been preoccupied with getting ready for this trip. And, when we get back, it'll be back to music production, which I've been right in the middle of for, I guess, weeks now. Got a little bit more of that, and then I have a little bit of break from that. And then, of course, starting this project, which I don't know what I'm going to call it, but I imagine it'll have something to do with Bill's name. I plan to build a site as a conservatory for these puppets, at least photos of them. And, that will probably take some time. It's funny how I sometimes have to look to meet that 20-minute mark, but I feel like I've just started talking about all that's happened, and we're almost there already. But I guess I'll try to hit another one of these next week to sort of let you know the events of the week once we got back with all this material and how I started processing. I do want to document this trip. By the way, there is a brief documentary on this trip on BrentBowers.com, or at least there will be in the next few days. I would say probably a basic version would be by tomorrow up on BrentBowers.com, and you can check that out. As always, the front page will load the latest content, and there'll be a menu that's Brento News, and you'll be able to find this article on what we did this weekend in there. And I did take some random pictures of the larger dragon that I'm not going to probably be able to save because of its size, of Patty sitting on it, and I turned that into an AI artwork that turned out pretty flecking awesome, let me say. So I will share some of that. And I think that ultimately, like, things that I generate based on photos of Bill's puppets and art will go on to the final website. And that's a nice way to kind of extend the work that he did. I'm sure he'd be blown away by just what midjourney.com spit out from the first picture that I sent of his dragon. And, it's like Patty said, I wish Bill could see this. This is amazing. And I thought to myself, maybe he can. Although, in my imagination, at least, or the way I believe, if you were in heaven, it'd be a real drag to see how things on earth are going, I think. So, I don't know. To me, in my version of heaven, there wouldn't be that. But on the one hand, I think that, I still think of, about my dad, and I feel like I commune with him spiritually, and because he's in my brain, he helped form my persona. So anything I do is always ran through the filter of what would Dad think of this, or wonder what Dad would do in this situation. So that's how our loved ones stay with us once they're gone in a physical way. And gosh, we've lost a lot of great ones here lately, especially in the celebrity world. It's a lot of sad scenarios where young folks have passed away unexpectedly. And I mean, of course, what you going to say? I do not think that the experimental vaccine has helped many people, but I do believe that it's hurt a lot of people. Do I think they're trying to cull the population with it? No, but I think we are essentially taking folks that got the poke, in my opinion, are taking a place of those $100 million or whatever of test animals that they typically have to go through in order to pioneer a real vaccine over 10 years, which is how it's done. Not this, oh, we got you something in 8 months, here you go. But this is the world we live in, folks. You got to decide what you think is best and make the best informed decision that you have with what you have in front of you. And for some people, that's taking the vaccine. For me, it's avoiding it at all costs. But that's just me. But I digress. Don't want to get too political here. Wow, seeing some really cool places up on hillsides here, and some old Victorian style homes, and some trailers too. But in beautiful locations. I could just totally imagine waking up, stepping out the door, and just seeing all this like natural beauty across a valley. I could totally see myself living in a situation like that. But apparently we're moving to Pilot Mountain, according to Miss Nancee. I guess we're just going to go there and be massage therapist Nancee, huh? But anyway, I think that's a good place to cap this, so I can get back to jamming out to some music and thinking through my next moves with the Project William Andrew Herman, and see what we can do. But thanks for listening as always, and I hope this makes it through in a timely manner to iTunes. I did notice that these are, for the most part, showing up on YouTube as they're supposed to. So once I noticed that, I put them into a playlist, and eventually I will share that playlist if you want to watch the video. In some cases, the video is just a generated title shot from Spreaker.com, which is where I host my podcast, and the software just puts a kind of a thumbnail on the episode. But in other cases, particularly 1 through I think 10, there's actually video to go with this. Now, one thing I consider doing is kind of going back through my vlogs. I back everything up meticulously, and it's something I always strive to do. And now that I have Google Fiverr, praise Jesus, I can upload all of my videos so fast. And I have multiple places, usually to upload a 4 gigabyte video file to YouTube. I click on upload, and by the time I filled out the details, it's already uploaded. How crazy is that? The thing about Fiverr is, some people have plenty of download speed, but they don't have much upload speed. And that was kind of the way it was with my Spectrum. But with Google Fiber, the upload matches the download, which is insane. I'm changing up some things technically. I got a new 360 camera from Insta360, which I'm really liking, but I want to hold off giving my official review of that. I will say that I am still using my Insta360 RS1 and enjoying that camera, but this would be 3 generations forward to that, this one that I got, which is the RS 1-inch 360 mod version. And I really got it for photographs. The video, so far, it's been giving me a message that the SD card's not fast enough. And of course, I got the SD card that it recommended, so I'm going to have to look into that. But it's relatively new, and I'm wondering maybe if that's just not the software needing to be tweaked a bit. But yeah, it's got 2 Lexia lenses on it. The photographs look incredible. I think they're native 21 megapixel, which is just nuts. So no longer do I have to upsize the photos to produce my HDRI products, which I am still pumping out on renderosity.com. More on that later. Getting into the tall grass now, because a lot of you guys aren't 3D render peoples. So just hold off on that. But yeah, as for now, healthy, happy, sailing down Highway 77 toward Albemarle, North Carolina. Hope you guys have a great one. Thanks for listening. Peace out.